The following podcast is a mass media production.
Hey, this is Chad Namiro.
And I'm Kelley Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast,
A lifestyle podcast where we will interview guests about wellness, business, and just about everything in between.
Our goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through our conversations, we hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos.
We hope you enjoy.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much for joining us for one final episode. And if you've been here all season, for joining us for the full season of the Balancing Chaos podcast. We're so grateful to have spent so many hours with you in your ears. Today, before we take a break and jumping into season 2, we're going to introduce you to Josh and Krystal Galindo. They are our neighbors, but more importantly, they have a really cool podcast and they have built a successful real estate brokerage here in Las Vegas where we talk to them about a ton of different topics. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they have 4 kids, 2 dogs, and 2 bunnies. So we get into how they balance all of it.
Yeah, so as far as the episode, they talk a lot about how they built their business, which is a family-owned and run business from the ground up. A lot about the real estate market in general right now, tips and tricks around buying your first home or honestly becoming a real estate investor. So a lot of really good knowledge, whether you've done this before or you're doing it for the very first time.
So, like I said, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be back for season 2 very soon. We hope you enjoy this last episode. Are you looking for a trusted resource for luxury Las Vegas real estate? The Ivan Share Group is the expert in the luxury Las Vegas real estate market, specializing in high-end homes and luxury high-rise properties. And trust me on this one, Chad and I can attest. They are so amazing. We've been working with them for the last few months on trying to find a new home, and they're showing us the most incredible properties. The Ivan Share Group is a dynamic team of leading real estate experts dedicated to client satisfaction. Their extensive expertise in Las Vegas and Henderson allows them to help luxury homebuyers find their dream home, no matter what their needs are. And like I said before, we are super, super specific on what we need, like a playroom for the kids and a home gym and things that not all homes have. And they are really good at showing us exactly what we want to see. They're dedicated to helping you buy, sell, or invest. So contact Ivan and his team today at 702-315-0223 or visit isluxury.com to learn more and learn what they do differently. The Ivan Share Group is luxury, your trusted resource for Las Vegas real estate.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast. My name is Chad. This is my wife, Kelley. Today we have our close neighbors, Josh and Krystal Galindo. They have a successful real estate business. They have a family of 4 humans. I'm not sure if you have dogs or not, but
2 dogs.
2 dogs?
And 2 bunnies.
Okay, so 8 plus you 2. But yeah, they also have their own podcast, which we'll get into in a little bit, but we're really excited to have you both here and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's our pleasure.
You want to tell us a little bit about your business and your family, just to kind of introduce our guests with you and your family?
Go ahead.
Why don't you start with the family?
Okay. I don't know if there's much to talk about with the family, but we've been married for 10 years and we have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, and they're 7, 5, 4, and 2.
Krystal, you must have been like 12 when you started having kids. You're so young. To have 4 kids, I love it.
Our marriage.
Yeah, I feel like I've been pregnant the last 8 years, pregnant or breastfeeding. But we're done. We are for sure done.
Switches off.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is it chaotic or is it good?
More about our family.
So it goes boy, girl, girl, boy. So it felt like a book match ending.
Yeah.
I like it.
To catch
Nice.
you up, to match them up. Let's see. Beckham loves soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy and Kinsley love gymnastics and tumbling. Jagger is at that awesome age where like every month there's a new development, like he says, ball or stand up or get up or throw your diaper away or so that's like a super awesome fun stage.
Yeah.
We bought these bunnies thinking they'd be great. They are full-blown rodents.
Bad idea.
I mean,
bad idea.
They literally go to the bathroom more than what they eat. It's incredible.
I was going to say,
God.
they shit everywhere, don't they?
There you go. Okay, I don't know how vulgar we could be. They shit like you wouldn't believe. I cannot believe how much this little animal can.
So then I put them outside thinking they'll get to frolic outside in the backyard, and they started eating all the plants. So then I had to get like a rabbit repellent before I put them out.
So we legitimately have 2 more kids with just those 2. And our beagle is so old, he's deaf and blind.
Oh.
Well, he can see a little bit, but he's definitely deaf. And then the Maltese is so old that she's full blind. So between the 2 of them, we have a full dog.
How old's the beagle?
16 years old. Actually,
wow.
16 and a half.
Yeah, he's
That's
almost
awesome.
17.
Toby's
Okay,
lived
that's
his entire adult life.
With all of that, and you guys run a successful business, Chad and I complain, not complain, but we say sometimes like that we're overwhelmed with one, and we both have our business. I don't know how you guys do it. Can you give our audience some tips before we get into the business side of what you do and your successful real estate business? Krystal, are you always in the office or are you part-time at home? Like, how do you guys manage it? Both like practical tips or just like general, like mental tips.
I think that one is hard. I would say multiples is easier because they do entertain each other and they do like get a lot from each other. So I don't feel like I have to be with them all. Like I'm there, but I don't have to be like playing hide and seek. I don't have to play the whatever board game because they're playing with each other. So that helps. I don't know. I don't know how I figure it out. I come to the office 4 days a week. Thursday is like my day off with the littlest 2. And then once I get the other ones from school, that's my day off with them. But they're all in like preschool daycares. So I have 3 drops, 3 pickups on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
They don't take Uber, huh?
He leaves the office at 3 o'clock to go grab the oldest, then comes back, brings them here. They're actually playing catch in my printer area right now. With one of my agents. So well, I always say I'm going to jump in here to help Krystal because she does way more than what she'll give herself credit for or be able to articulate. Is we don't have a home life and a work life. Yeah. You know, there's not. I leave it all at the office, or I go home and or I go to the office and leave home all at home. Our worlds are literally blended. We have one life. And it involves our kids and it involves work. I mean, it's everything. My kids, you know, yesterday we're leaving football practice then game. And I'm like, you want to go drive a house? You know, and for fun, you know, we get there and I just bought this house and it was nasty. And I was also disappointed by the guys that were supposed to have demoed it. So I started like ripping cabinet doors off and popping countertops off. And then I had Beckham helping me pull drawers out and throw them in a big pile, and Kensley and Kennedy and Jagger just crawling in and out of Jagger crawled in and out of the bathtub.
And he put his hand in the toilet.
And then put it in his mouth. And then put it in his mouth. It was the worst. My point is that I find pride and enjoyment in exposing my children to that stuff. I want them to see. I even look back and I say, what other kid gets to rip apart a kitchen? You know, I mean, so for me, it's a total blend. And I think Krystal masterfully handles it. She just handles it. And honestly, it's her department. I'm there to help when I'm told to help, you know.
I think
and some free labor.
Huh?
West, I said, and some free labor in there. We should get West working. He doesn't do shit around the house.
I think
That's awesome though.
Make sure that like I try to make sure we have dinner together, and then like 30 minutes to an hour after dinner, I try to give them like the undivided attention, because that's all. I mean, if it's undivided, they'll feel fulfilled, you know. And then once they go to bed, I can pick up on work stuff or whatever.
And we're real big proponents of them being extremely social. Mm-hmm. Something that I encourage new parents to do and Krystal and I obviously did this, was to invite your children to live with you. You're not living with them. So we often entertain and we have parties, and people will be up and playing until midnight, 1 a.m. Music's going, the subwoofer's blaring, and the kids go to bed at 9:30 and they sleep right through it. And I always try to prevent the scenario where, you walk up to the front door, there's a little note on the door that says, please don't ring doorbell, kids sleeping. Like, I want people to be able to ring my doorbell at any moment, and it's not going to disrupt my whole life, or create an hours long worth of work to put the kid back to sleep. They nap on the go. If their tummy hurts and we're at a party, which they'll try to find all these random excuses. It's like, go lay on the couch. Like, you're living with us. So welcome to our world. We're not changing our life to accommodate yours. Yeah. And I think, and what that's done is it's created incredibly social kids. Like, literally, they're playing with an agent that they've maybe seen 5 times, instead of glued to my leg or to Krystal's leg. Mm-hmm. So we're big proponents of the kids being wildly social and love that. And so they can go to any event. They know how to behave. The great thing is that by me not being willing to stay home while Krystal goes to the grocery store, they're taught how to act in the grocery store. They're not wild animals. So Krystal can take 4 kids. When we still go out to eat all the time. We're like, we're not going to not go out to eat because we have 4 kids. They're going to learn how to act when we go out to eat.
Oh, and I love that. I think that's awesome.
Oh, I could rattle on and on. So
I was just going to say, first of all, I love what Krystal said about the quality time thing, because as a working mom myself, I think that quality is so much more important than quantity. When you're really focused on them, they feel like they're paid attention to. So I love that tip for people who are parents. I think that it's super important to put the devices away and have just some quality time. And when it comes to making them a part of your life, Chad and I used to be those people who were like, totally. I was so strict with the schedule. When we first had West, it was like, he's going to nap then, and then it was like, all of a sudden it kind of evolved, because it was like, we want to go travel. We want to go do things. We want to have a life. And it's like, the more kids I have, or even if I just have this one, I want to have him be a part of our life. So we went to Joshua Tree a couple months ago now, and he napped in the car on the way there, and we ended up staying up till 1 a.m. and our 1-year-old was up till 1 a.m. and it was fine. Life is fine. So
I was proud of him. She was concerned. I thought it was great. It's his first party.
No, that's awesome. I love that way. I think it's good for him. I mean,
yeah, I think so. Our first son, when we had our first son, we still wanted to be able to go do all those things. So I get FOMO. I'm like, no, I'm not missing out. I want to go. And it's like, if I have to bring him with me, he's coming with me. And we went. It was for a wedding. It was the night before. All my family was in town. We went to a hotel room, and everybody just called him Party Baby. And I'm like, yeah, it works.
I love
it. That's awesome.
Let's talk a bit about your business. So you have one of the most successful real estate brokerages firms in town. I have a few properties myself. I'm highly interested in the topic. I think a lot of our guests are as well. Tell us a bit about your business. It's clearly family owned. And we'll get into the real estate market, specifically Vegas, but
I think how they got started too.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting for our listeners.
So I'll start with how I got started, because I obviously started first. Krystal came into when we met and got married, and she's had her journey, and then our journeys kind of blended.
Yeah.
So my mom was in real estate, and she was an escrow officer at Chicago Title, which was First United Title. She started out basically as a coffee girl. Go do this, go do that. And she worked herself all the way up to vice president of Chicago Title before she retired. And in a nutshell, she always was trying to find ways to, we were raised single mom. So dad left when I was 1, sister was 3. No, came back for birthdays, nonsense. Like that was it. Terminated parental rights. So my mom had to figure out how to provide and give a great life to 2 children and accomplish her personal goals, which I think was was evident by the life that she was able to create for herself. So, you know, we obviously are here and arguably successful or somewhat successful, and she was able to still accomplish her goals. But what she would see is she was doing land deals, so land escrows. So she would see a big land guy walk in with a 5-acre parcel, and then she would watch 5 other investors walk in with $100,000 checks, assuming the purchase price was $500,000. Fund it. She'd watch the guy take the agent that brought in, or the guy that put the deal together, take a 10% commission. So he made 50 grand up front. The investors would get $450,000 worth of equity in the deal. And then she would watch the same guy come back 3 years later and sell the property for $2 million. So now he owned 10% of the deal. They owned 90%. So he'd make another $200,000. Plus he'd get by owning the deal. Plus he would get a commission for selling the deal. And then all the investors would double, triple their money. And she's like, wait a second. Instead of just playing escrow officer, why not ask these people if I could be a partner in the deal? So she then built relationships where either she was asked to be a part of it or she asked, however it translated. And then she started participating in them. So she was thinking bigger than just processing each transaction. She became an investor in them. And so I turned 18. So she had some really spectacular relationships in town with some really big players. And I was a hard worker from the beginning. I always know that about myself. And I was working at the Mirage, and I was like, I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have a college degree. So the only thing I really got is hard work and my ability to talk. So I was a lifeguard, and I moved up to a pool attendant. I hustled my way into the best shift as a pool attendant. I impressed all the executives. I moved to the front desk. I moved to valet. And for me, I was moving up the ladder. And my mom, she's like, I'm watching, you're going to do valet, which at the time was a spectacular job, but I was making $40,000 a year. And she understood that I was going to be making $40,000 a year in 30 years adjusted for inflation, because that's kind of the gig. So she was conscious of that. And she was like, you know what? I don't think this is the game for you as a good parent. And she introduced me to her friend. And I remember being 18, I just bought a cool Audi with a $400 car payment, my first house. And I'm on top of the world. I worked valet in Vegas at 18 or whatever age I was. And he offers me a job. And I was like, I'm good, man. I'm living good. He goes, well, the guy I hired last year made $1 million. I was like, holy cow. Like, I didn't even know that kind of money existed. I genuinely didn't understand that a human being could make that kind of money in a year. And I immediately went and got my real estate license and quit. And I didn't make $1 million the next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, or the year after that, or the year after that. But it introduced me to real estate. And I learned how to understand real estate more than simply sell real estate. I learned how to take a piece of real estate and ensure that I put it in a position to garner its highest and best use. And in exchange for putting it in that position, I'm rewarded with either a profit or a commission or something like that. So I'm beyond just a realtor or a sales person. I truly understand it. I understand how to make it worth more money and then collect a profit in exchange for my efforts. So that's how I got into real estate. And then we could just kind of fast forward to Krystal. And that was in 2005, to how we blended our real estate lives.
Yeah, but you started flipping before.
I bought my first house in 2008. So before that, I was syndicating land deals or doing my best that I could. Again, doing pretty well for my age, probably too well for my age. I was an original investor in the original Stonys. So I had that whole life, if you guys played that Stonys game. I was 22, living the dream. And then the whole world came crashing down on me in 2007. So I got my balls completely kicked in. I lost everything. I remember opening my Bank of America app with Krystal sitting next to me when I knew that she was the one. And I had a minus $161 in my bank account. Where I was going to get $161 to make that even, let alone enough to pay the next bill that I had. And Krystal loved the shit out of me from that day. From when I had rock star and hot shot at Stonys to when I was broke as shit. And I was like, this is my ride or die. And so then we got married and.
Right. And then from that point, that's when he started flipping, because a lot of houses were going to auction, and how he got into flipping the houses was starting then. And then he flipped for a couple of years with an investor. And then after we had our first kid, we started talking about starting our own real estate company, because I didn't want to go back to cocktailing anymore. I was cocktailing. So he'd work during the day and I would work at night.
We were on the high five schedule with the kid. I'd have to stay up as late as I possibly could with the kid, so the kid would sleep in. And she would have to wake up as early as she could, having got off at 2 or 3 in the morning, so she could wake up at a reasonable time, and then have to wake up at a reasonable time with the kid. So we were both sleep deprived. I remember thinking, like, they torture people with the shit that new parents go through. Extreme noise, the whole night. I'm like, this is military grade torture with our first child. But
you guys are hustlers. That is serious hustling to do cocktailing and work like that and have a baby. That's insane. And so then from there, you guys started like working together when you started your own company.
Yeah, we started talking about it, and then we knew we were going to have another kid. So I was like, okay, I have to write it out for this next one, so I can at least get like through my maternity leave, like for insurance reasons. And then after our second one, I went back for a little bit, and then we started this.
Basically, Krystal started out as a transaction coordinator for me, because I was like, this was back in the days, like, I got to write 100 to 150 offers a week to stay in business. So at the time, this was before all this Authentic Sign was out there, and this PDF and this paperless lifestyle.
Yeah.
I literally had to rent a space with my investor, just because it was the most efficient use of our time. I'd have to find a deal, print out the offer, walk over to his office, have it signed, walk it back to my office, scan it into the scanner, convert it to a PDF, attach the PDF to an email, and then send it. So I was so PTSD from, it's called Transaction Desk, the realtor software that they use for writing offers. I had so much PTSD from that I was like, I never want to do this. I never want to write another offer for the rest of my career. And then Chris was like, well, what can I do for you? I was like, you can do all of my paperwork.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
She started out as a transaction coordinator, which taught her the ins and outs of a proper real estate file, which there's a proper way to do it. And then to summarize what she does today, which will slightly touch on your question about our business, is we have a consulting business which allows us to go into people's homes and renovate it on their behalf in the event they want that. We have a flipping business that does 100 to 120 homes a year. We have a retail business that is a general retail business, meaning if you want to buy or sell, we will represent you. And in that retail business, we have 47 agents. We have 31 rental properties. We have 2 under contract that we're closing on the 10th. So that'll put us at 33 rental properties. And my point is that Krystal manages the rental properties. Unless there's a huge problem, she comes to me to help solve it together. But arguably, she's in charge of the rentals. She handles every dollar that comes in for the rentals, every dollar that goes out for the rentals. She handles all of the bills for the retail business, plus all of the commissions. You can only imagine in the first quarter of 2021, Galindo Group Real Estate did 138 transactions, and she processed every single check for each of those agents, not including rents that came in, all that other stuff. And then the flips. A simple way to create perspective for how valuable Krystal is if each flip only has a $25,000 budget, which they're way more than that. Some we got at 150, some are actually probably our lowest is 25 for perspective. Krystal is in charge of all of the money on, assuming we do 120 a year, it's 10 a month. That's like $250,000 of money coming in and out every single month that Krystal has to balance American Express cards for 8 employees. And she's ridiculously talented. I don't even know how to articulate it well enough. And I'm not her vote, but I know she won't give herself the credit, so I got to make sure to give it to her.
I think that is so amazing that you do all of that work and that you guys do all of that work together, and that you, Josh, give her like all of the accolades, because it's super important, I think, when you work together. So before Chad asks you guys about all of those businesses, because I know he wants to get into that, give me some tips, because we just started this podcast together, and I know that there are a lot of couples out there that want to work together. What are some tips that you guys have for working together?
Oh, that's hard. I feel like we're now starting to, it's been it's been 6 years that we've been like really working together. And I feel like now we're starting to catch our flow. But I think that the one major thing that was like a benefit was that I was going to work and I'd come home complaining about my customers or whatever. And he's going to work complaining about his contract or whatever. And I didn't want to listen. He didn't want to listen. It was like, we're both complaining.
We didn't care.
Right.
Now you have the same problems.
Problems. So now we're in it together. So now, I mean, that was one positive because we both understood where each other was at when that happened. But I don't know. I
think we'll blend this question. So you said tips. One, I think the reality is that we're not doing the exact same thing. Like not even close. She's got her own office, her own assistant. I've got my office, my employees, and we are totally separate. So it may seem like we work together, but the reality is that I see her for maybe a combined 30 minutes a day at the office, and I'm out jamming, she's jamming. So a tip, I would say, don't try to stay in the same lane, because that could create competition. That could create a lot of nonsense in the marriage that just may not be necessary. Identify each person's lane and encourage them to excel in their lane. And then that way there's not like, like if she was looking for deals and she's got 7 houses and I'm sitting here at 0, it's human nature to be like, either what's wrong with me? And then I pull out the shame hammer and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then I'm like, fucking Krystal's cheating or some, not like cheating, deal. I don't know. Find each other's lanes, own the lane, and encourage each other to do best in each of their lanes.
I love that.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd love to just talk a little bit about the market, not just in Vegas, but generally. And I certainly have a lot of thoughts. I'm sure you have even more, but I'd love to just get your perception on, let's focus on the Vegas market. Inventory is flying off the shelves from every offer that I've been a part of or heard my friend be a part of. They're going over list. Rates are cheap, money's cheap, but like, what's really driving that? Is it coastal migration? Is it cheap rates? Is it a combination of everything and more? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I haven't heard the term coastal migration. We call it people moving from California, but
we went to school in LA, so we're being gentle.
No, man, I think that's actually a beautifully well put term of what's actually happening. I think it's somewhat there's many factors, and we'll try to go into as many as I can rattle off. But one, all of a sudden people realize they can work from home. Yeah. And still be productive. I don't think that's forever, and I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's for everybody. So I don't know how big of a role that's playing. But someone living in California that is working from home, selling a $900,000 house that's 800 square feet, 2 bedroom, maybe 3 if you're lucky, in a one bath and no yard, and then coming here for $450,000 and getting 3,500 square foot 3-car with a pool and spa and a huge yard. To them, it's a home run. So you got that coming in, and then you got low interest rates, like you said. I mean, it's so cheap. So obviously that's fuel on the fire. I think the pandemic took place, and then the moratorium that is in place, I think that's extremely detrimental for the market. There's a lot of sellers that haven't had to make a payment. And what people don't realize, and it happened in the last recession that I was very aware of, is by not forcing people to make their rent payments or their mortgage payments, you are artificially stimulating the economy. Because don't fool yourselves, all these people that received all that stimulus or all of that government assistance and the one thing that they should have done, the one thing is they should have required, in order to receive that money, you should have been required to either make your rent payment or your mortgage payment.
I agree with that.
You get a read on what the economy is doing. How much of this stimulus money is stimulating the economy versus these people were taking all that stimulus money, not paying the landlord or the bank, and then spending it at the shopping mall. So now they think the economy's on fire, but as soon as they have to start paying it again, now they're going to get the truth. So the moratorium is a huge component. I don't think it's going to create. See, a lot of people are saying when the moratorium ends that there's going to be a crash, or that all of a sudden there's going to be a glut of inventory. My experience, my understanding of what I've read is that the government has come in and like on Yahoo and MSN and CNBC, like on big news outlets, has said, if you take advantage of these people that aren't paying their mortgages, you will be held accountable. Yeah. Now, I don't know how much more dangerous of a statement that has to be to the banks to hear that, but I know that Wells Fargo, they'll get hit with a $50 million fine or $150 million fine like it's nothing. And nobody wants that. So I don't think the banks are going to just start foreclosing and kick these people out. So that's going to maintain strength in the market. So that is migration, working from home, interest rates, moratorium. And then here's what I think is happening as well is all of these people that are getting these loans so cheap, like we just refinanced our house next to you guys. We borrowed $1.1 million at 2.37% for 30 years. 2.3. That is the dumbest, cheapest, freest money I've ever borrowed and will probably ever borrow for the rest of my life. So now let's just say that I want to move and capture all the equity. Let's just play that game. I would pull a second mortgage out. Let's just call it 3 or 4% and use that money to go buy my next house. But I would never pay off the 1.1 million. I'd likely make my home a rental because it's wildly cash flow at this point. So now what that does is I'm out there taking another house from the pot and I'm not resupplying it with another one. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So all the people that have either bought or refinanced in these extremely low rates, now they have no motivation to sell because the property will cash flow as a rental. So then they go and take, but they don't replenish. And that's also driving down the inventory. So all of these factors, I mean, think of how many we just rattled off here. I think that's five. Five factors are just banging down on this inventory problem. And as long as there's a lack of supply and an abundance of demand, then prices just keep jumping. And they're jumping like crazy. You hold that question for me. I got some wild stories around that.
I mean, just for our audience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they aren't just low. They're the lowest they've ever been, pretty much. Correct.
It's the lowest I've ever experienced. I remember in 2013 is when I experienced the first big bump. And there was the lowest I saw it get, and someone will correct me if my number's wrong, but it was like 2,300 single family homes. Today, I was looking for deals. There's 1,900. If you equate that, because some people won't know what that actually looks like. What that is, it's like 2.5 weeks of inventory. Yeah. So if you didn't put one more house on starting today, in 2.5 weeks, assuming you only use the MLS to find homes, in 2.5 weeks, you wouldn't be able to buy one house in Las Vegas. So if that's not for how low the inventory is, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Well, I refinanced almost all my properties. I think it's a popular thing to do. One question I wanted to pose is something that I actually have a few individuals, friends of mine, they're looking to move from California and they're like, well, the rates are cheap, but I'm having to go whatever it is, 5, 6, 7% over listing. My answer to them was, who cares? Just amortize that extra amount into the 30-year loan and just get the property. Because my take on real estate is always that in a decent market, and there are so many of them, it'll always go up over time. I'm assuming you feel the same way.
I do. I lightly agree with you that they'll always go up. At the end of the day, they always go up. But you got to have strength to make it through those lulls, because lulls could. I mean, we learned that last one. Although I don't think that'll ever happen in our lifetime again, where they get that low.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in what you just said there. People, I call equity in a home or equity in anything you've got is either a bragging right or it's a bitching right. But it doesn't equate to anything. It's like me coming to your house and being like, did you see what the last model match sold for?
Yeah.
Like, what does that do for you or I other than create conversation? Or, God damn it, I'm flipped on my house. I'm fucking upside down $500,000. What does that do other than create conversation? What actually changes people's lives and the way that they live is cash flow. That means what goes in and what comes out. So if you could borrow at a very low rate and have to pay a little bit more, but your mortgage is this, you can afford that for as long as you're in business, then what you paid for the house means nothing, because it's just a bragging right or a bitching right. If it goes to zero, can you still afford this? Okay, then what's it matter?
Yeah.
The only time that matters is if you're going to buy or if you're going to sell.
Yeah.
And assuming most people are going to stay in their home for 5 to 7 years, I think even if it did correct in the next 2 years, you got 5 years left to figure it out.
Well, and isn't it, if the interest rates were higher, you'd be paying more, or you're paying more for the property. It's like an even swap.
That's my other argument is real estate stays in a box. The box doesn't change, but the terms and factors inside the box do. So if prices go down, they usually go down because interest rates go up. So now the cost to borrow is more expensive. So your payment didn't really change. So that thing that actually matters that nobody pays attention to didn't change. So you're like, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait because I think the market's going to go down. Okay, well, interest rates go up and that house costs you the same amount of money. Now you got equity, you party and brag, but it didn't change your cash flow situation.
Yeah.
Cash flow is king. Not cash, not equity, cash flow.
Yeah.
Quickly pausing this episode of the show to let you know that my private one-on-one coaching container is now open. Over the course of 2021, I'm only going to be working with a small, select group of women to help them return to feeling like they're at home in their bodies, to help them lose resistant weight, to feel less anxious and more energized. My one-on-one coaching is truly for you if you're tired of feeling depleted, overwhelmed, bloated, or like you're just not enough. There's no magic pill or cleanse or detox that's going to work. You are really ready to make that commitment to yourself and create the habits that will lead you to hormonal balance and vibrant health. I'm here to help you get to the root cause and create meaningful change. If you're feeling called to work with me so that you can finally feel at home in your body, head to the link in the show notes to learn more.
So interest rates, equity, cash flow, I think that these are all good things to talk about and something that I understand now after being a first-time homeowner, but there are definitely people in our audience who might not understand that. So to give people a little bit of perspective, if they were going to buy their first house, what would be some advice that you have for them? Or what would be some general thoughts around that? Because it can be really intimidating for people.
Yeah.
And talk about the tax shelters too. I think a lot of people don't know you can write off the interest. You know, they don't understand what the benefits are. So yeah.
There's a ton of benefits. If you live in a house for a total of, I think it's 2 years.
2 years.
In 5 years, of the 5 years.
500?
Total of 2, yeah. It's completely free. We've probably accumulated close to $1 million in 100% tax-free money by moving. Like we live in a nice home today. I think we can I'll candidly say that and be okay with it. But I always tell my friends, like, I didn't start here. We bought a little $136,000 house, sold that for like $190,000. I had a house that I bought for $140,000, sold it for like $200,000. We moved that money, bought a house for $250,000, sold that for $550,000. Took that money, bought a house for $466,000, sold it for $700,000. Took that money and bought the big house. So first and foremost, I'm a believer in just do it.
Yep.
Don't overanalyze yourself. But I remember, I'm going to relate with what you said, Kelley, because I remember sitting down in front of my mom's friend that has taught me a lot of real estate stuff when I was buying my first home. And we were talking about the mortgage payment. And I remember putting that together and being like, man, that's a big payment. But I was putting my big boy pants on and trying to pump myself up to take it on. And then he hits me with like all the other stuff. You know, you got to pay the cable bill. You know, you got to pay the internet bill. You know, you got to pay water, trash, sewer. And I remember, and that little 20-minute conversation scared me out of the whole idea. I was like, I'm not buying it now.
And most millennials, they're candidly scared of taking on debt. There's a reservation among our generation. And I don't believe in it either. I think it's the best asset you can have. But continue.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you don't need as much. Okay. So I've had such wild questions asked to me by people that don't understand the buying process that I think it may be important to just touch on those. Mm-hmm. Totally. So first and foremost, the great thing about buying a home is as your landlord, Galindo Group and Galindo Futures, our new entity, every year I'm going to reanalyze what the rents are on my property. And if they've gone up, I'm going to politely ask for you to pay more. So now you better hope that your income has gone up. So when you rent, there's no stability on what you're ultimately going to have to pay. If I decide to sell, I'm going to ask you to leave, and now you've got to go and rent a new place. So renting is not always the safest move, obviously. versus a fixed mortgage. If you get a 30-year fixed mortgage, which I'm a big believer in the 30-year fixed mortgage. I don't like these interest onlys, these ARMs, all this other stuff. 30 years fixed.
Bread and butter.
What's that?
That's a bread and butter, of course.
Yeah. So that payment stays the same. So if your house goes up in equity, your payment stays the same. And the reason I'm beating this question up is I actually got asked by somebody, does my payment go up if my house goes up in value? And it doesn't. It's fixed. So that's a quick myth to just throw away. So your payment's always the same for 30 years. So you can build your whole life around that payment. The other thing is you don't need very much money. If you go FHA, you can put down 3.5%. Yeah. So let's just say that it's a $100,000 house. You need $3,500 plus some closing cost money. So call it $7,000. So for every $100,000, you're going to need about $7,000 to be able to buy it. So that's the least expensive way to get into a home. If you go FHA, there's a thing called private mortgage insurance that you have to pay for. And that protects the government, protects the investor in the event you default on the property. It's like paying your car insurance. You pay $100 a month and you get into a car accident, they'll write a check for $10,000 to fix your car. So that's what private mortgage insurance is. If you go FHA and don't put down 20%, you'll be forced to pay that. Yeah. If you put down 20%, you won't have to pay that. So while it sounds sexy and attractive to only have to put down 3.5%, you will be paying the private mortgage insurance, and the private mortgage insurance goes to nothing. So I'm a believer in trying at the very least to put down the 20% to eliminate having to pay the private mortgage insurance. The second thing is when you find the home of your dreams, it satisfies all of your needs. I would fire away on it. Like it's if you don't get it, you're gonna be executed. Like fire away on it. Do whatever it takes to get it, because they don't make homes are like thumbprints. There's not another. They're all different. You know, even if they're model matches, they could be designed differently. They could have different layouts in the backyard. They could have different size pools, different design pools, different locations. So if you love it, do everything it takes to get it. And that may mean offering 5 to 7% more than what it's listed at. That may mean paying the seller's closing costs. That may mean paying above appraised value. Because if you don't run into it again, you're going to be disappointed. The other thing, I had a really good one. I should have just jumped into it.
Those are really good tips for someone, especially for someone like who does not know what they're doing. So I think that's a great place.
I also think like basic tips is like, okay, say you have a list of 10 things you want. If you find a house that has 5, like that's really good. Like go with what's most important. And if you have like the top 3, you should probably go with that one.
Yeah. Man, that was such a good point I had. It'll come to me like midway, but so I would say do it. Oh, that's it. Okay, this is my point. There's 2 types of return on investments, right? Right now, we both bought these hats. They're worth 0. If you tried to sell me your hat, I'd give you nothing. If I tried to sell you mine, you'd give me nothing. But we paid for them because the return on investment is, I like the way it fits. It protects my bald head. The investment is in other ways other than monetary value. And I think people get hung up on buying a home with the sole thought of it being an investment. It should be also, you need to also picture, what am I going to do with this home? And will that action create a memory that's enjoyable, that's lasting? That is also a return on investment. Our home, we abused the shit out of it. 1,000 people have come in, and I'm not kidding when I say that number, that's probably a real number, have gone in and out of that home with the different parties that we've thrown. And for me, the big jump to buy such a nice home, the extra money I have to spend to own that home, those memories are my return on investment on that money. So you got to consider the 2 things. There's return on investment monetarily speaking, and there's return on investment emotionally, memory, family. There's a whole nother return on investment that people forget about. You know, so if the house with the pool is $30,000 more, and you're like, well, I may not get my money back. But would you spend $30,000 to have spectacular memories with your family for the next 10 years? I would.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important aspect of buying a home. Like you know, I never really thought about it that way, but I think we'll always think of this as the first home that we had with our son and like probably at least one more of our kids. Like, I think that that's a really special way to look at it. But
yeah. When we moved to this house, Josh was trying to convince me to move. I'm like, if we move, you got to give me another kid because we brought all the kids home at the other one. So we got to have another kid to bring home to this one.
Oh, it's so cute. I love that.
I know we're maxing out over here. But just so the audience knows quickly on like the actual financial benefits outside of appreciation, to go through them, you can write off up to $500,000 of profit tax-free when you sell it. Every dollar you put towards interest, you can take that out of your taxable income. If you convert it to an investment property, you can defer the tax if you buy another investment property as well. Also known as a 1031 exchange, if Joe doesn't get rid of it, that is. But yeah, there's just a tremendous amount of advantages, right? So yeah, I don't think a lot of people really know that. You know, people that I've spoke with that's never bought a house, I don't think they're aware of a lot of these things. So
one thing that
I would discourage, it's another myth, is people will say, "Ooh, I'm going to switch to a 15-year fixed."
Yeah.
And that way I'll pay my house off in 15 years instead of 30. So that ends up costing you, let's call it $300 to $400 more a month to pay it off in 15 years. If you don't have any understanding of investing, then maybe that's your gig and good for you, and that's your end game. If you have a desire to invest, I think you're better off doing the 30-year fix, saving the $400 a month, which is $5,000 a year over 30 years, and invest that extra money. And that money will build substantially faster than what you would save by paying your house off sooner. I'm a believer, again, in the 30-year mortgage, not the 15, not the interest only, not the ARMs.
Yeah, opportunity cost. And for everyone's knowledge, if you want to pay more principal, anything you pay above your monthly goes all towards principal. Yeah. So yeah, that's really good information.
I think that's really helpful to our audience.
I mean, I would love to talk about.
Keep going. What else we got?
I want to talk about flips because I think everyone thinks it's really
next.
sexy, and you're on HGTV and you're like, honey, this is easy, right? You just go in and you like swap a few cabinets. It's not, and you can lose a lot of money doing it. And so, you know, I'd love to hear about your experience with that.
Well, I can tell you that HGTV is full of shit.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
we were on HGTV one time, and it was between us or Flip or Flop Vegas.
That's the one I know of, yeah.
They chose Flip or Flop Vegas because we chose to be wealthy, not famous. If we would have gotten picked up, we would have made $1,500 per episode for the first season. So that's a combined $3,000. One episode takes, I think, 62 hours. I don't remember the number.
My gosh.
62 hours worth of filming to get 26 minutes. I had to have my entire office sitting in their cars with their cars running out front of the house so that I could conduct my other parts of business. Krystal and I repainted a red planter 30 times because we couldn't get the scene right. They asked me to over-improve the property to the highest extreme you could ever.
So just make it not profitable?
Yeah, to make it non-profit. And I looked at them and I go, guys, if I don't make money on this house, this is all for nothing. So I'd rather make money than over-improve it for your show. But that's part of the gig. If you want to be famous, you got to make it entertaining and have TV.
Right.
TV is full of shit. It doesn't mean anything bad. It's great entertainment. It's just not real life flipping.
Right. Right.
So that's not a representation of like a real flip.
No.
So what is a real flip like?
And a flip for everyone is when you buy a home, remodel it, sell it, usually on a short-term basis. Who should flip and who really shouldn't, I guess maybe is the question.
Who should flip? Well, there's two different types of flipping, and it can be lucrative either way. So I've ran into people with, you shooting the shit at a bar with a random guy. What do? I flip homes. And then they respond with, oh my gosh, I do too. And I'm like, hey, how many have you done? And they're like, I bought one in March and I sold it and I have another one and I've had it for 6 months and I've sold it and I'm going to make 50 grand. And I'm like, okay, hold on. So you didn't flip. You purchased 2 homes. The market appreciated, which is what rewarded you, making you believe you flipped a home. But what really happened is the market just went up. Right. So, and then I'm like, okay, I do 120 homes a year. I've done over 700 in my career. That's a business. So who should flip, who shouldn't? There's really, everybody can flip. And the big misconception about flipping is that people, to this day, ask me, are you able to find inventory? Can you find houses? Oh, the market's strong. Are you able to still buy? There's somebody fucking a house up at every moment. All the time. I'm telling you, I bought homes that were built in like 2017. I bought it in like 2018 and had to renovate it. I mean, there's always that person that has lived in the home for 30 years and never maintained it, and now they're ready to sell.
Yeah.
So my point is there's always an abundance of inventory if you're disciplined, you're tenacious, and you're creative on how you're going to do it.
Maybe you should touch on how you did your first flip, because not everybody has like just a chunk of cash sitting around.
Yeah. Do you need to do it at auction, or can you finance a flip? You know, the answer is yes, but maybe people don't know that.
When I'm doing it, you almost need to do. You need to find a hard money partner. And there's multiple of them out there. The more business you give the hard money guy, the higher turnover that they receive. I'm going to go slow here. The more turnover that you create, the better for the hard money guy, because they make a lot of their money on the origination fees.
Yep.
So if you can prove to them that you'll do a lot of volume and turn the money over a lot, then they'll lower the interest rate. So most people are used to a hard money loan being between 10 and 12% and 2 and 3 points. And a point is a percentage of the amount borrowed. So that's what most people's understanding is. My hard money lender is 0.75 origination fee and 6.45 interest.
Yeah.
So it's like wildly spectacularly better than a general hard money lender. But that came with experience and time and proven track record. But I want to go back to just who should flip. Anybody can. But you make all your money in the buy. People have to understand that. I watch a lot of new guys come in, they'll buy a home at basically market value. They install gold doorknobs, faucets, and hinges. And then they ask $100,000 more because they installed gold.
Right.
That's not the way flipping works. Flipping, you are capped at what the homes around you are selling for. You might get $10,000 or $15,000 more because of your improvements, but your improvements are not equal to value. For example, I'm going to put $75,000 into this house I just bought into the lakes. I will not get all of that back. Basically put that. It doesn't equate to value. I still have to sell my home within the reasonable amount, within the amount that the comparable homes are selling for.
Yep.
So anyway, that's just a tip. But
Because you bought it good.
Because I bought it right. You got to buy them right.
Right. What are you mostly modifying? You know, floors, cabinets. Like, are you often taking out walls, or is it mostly like cosmetic? Almost curb appeal.
I buy so much that
mixed bag. Yeah.
Yes, but what I would encourage someone to start off with is, if you're going to start, I call it a deskin and a reskin. So that means you don't have a lot of floor plan changes. Your job is to go in there and pluck stuff off the wall, pull out the cabinets, anything you can lift with your hands, take out. Anything you lift with your hands, put back in. That's a deskin and a reskin. That's a good start for somebody. But to tell you, I've built 7 pools. I've put 50-foot beams in. I've moved master bathrooms from one side of the house to the other side of the house. I do new roofs, new windows. I've done firehouses. I've done flooded houses. I've done everything. My experience is I'd be surprised there's a lot of guys like me in town. There's probably 5, but 10,
I think one of the only other investment vehicles that I wanted to discuss was the concept of buying a home and just using it as an Airbnb. Have you gotten into any of that, either in Vegas or outside of it? And what are your thoughts on that model?
There's a few things that I would be conscious of with an Airbnb. And everybody, when the pandemic hit and they shut all that down, they were predicting that the first wave of homes to be foreclosed on were the Airbnbs. Because when you buy an Airbnb, you're not justifying the value of the real estate solely on the value of the real estate. So, for example, a downtown home, that's a great Airbnb home. Normally, it should sell for $300,000. If the investor looks at it and it pencils at $400,000, $100,000 of it is the business component of the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So now, if you sell it as a traditional home, you're only going to get $300,000.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of married to the Airbnb model. So that's just something to be conscious of. Again, you should be buying them at a discount, improving them, and then knowing that you could sell them at what the market allows for. So if Airbnb is a business more than it is a real estate investment. The tool to generate to that creates the profit for the business is the real estate, but it's not a real estate play necessarily. Yeah. Because unless you play it right and you know how to buy them. So we did it one Airbnb and it was totally by accident. We bought a house in a little condo in Bryan Head. I bought it it's the greatest rental I've got. I bought it for $120,000, put $17,000 into it to make it right between the rehab and the furniture. So we're into it for $137,000. Krystal and I are leaving. She goes, honey, and nobody was supposed to go into it. It was supposed to be our little space. We were leaving. She goes, we're not coming back for 3 months. And I was like, holy cow, 3 months. I was like, throw it on Airbnb because I got to make some money on it if it's going to sit for 3 months. The first month we generated $4,400 on a $137,000 investment. It's like spectacular. So incredible. That turned me on. But the other thing is I think you got to kind of be first in because now the same unit literally is $275,000 is what they go for there. So would I build an Airbnb model around a $275,000 purchase that kicks out $4,000 a month? Yeah. But then you got to consider other factors. There's just always so much conversation around it. It's not easy just to say yes, because in my opinion, we bought that condo a year ago. It's gone up from $120,000 to $275,000. If a market can go up that kind of money that quick, it could go down that quick. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd say everybody run to Bryan Head and buy Airbnbs. So to be quite honest, I don't have a full understanding on it. I'm sure a guy that has 50 of them be a better guy to talk to. But my experience is what I just described, and we're very happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. We got an Airbnb in Joshua Tree, and my experience has been they're never quite as they picture. They're always a little smaller and a little shittier.
Yeah.
Except yours.
I'm sure someone believes it was probably a little smaller, a little shittier than I thought. No,
but they're huge in Palm Springs, and it's just interesting model. And I know that a ton of people had 5, 6, 7 of these, and they had a ton of debt out, and when they cut it, they all defaulted. So a little bit of danger in there. Yeah.
So you actually know people that were in that boat. Yeah, that's the thing. It's solely dependent on travelers and the government. Vegas, they hate them.
It's such a hotel driven.
Those casino owners are just brutal.
I know. There's certain houses that could be.
I'm just kidding. Nah, they hate them. They don't want them because they take the people, and I don't want them.
Out of rooms.
Be so dependent
take
on
the beds out of the head.
Yeah, Vegas isn't the market for it, but I figured Bryan Head probably is, right?
Yeah,
of course, destination. Not
the ones here. You have to be in a certain area, right?
Yeah, you got to be in a certain area. They'll shut you down. You got to get permitted. There's all kinds of interesting.
Yeah, that's the other thing is all the regulation around it, of course.
So my model is the rental game, Chad. Is
my model too.
So where it gets difficult is your first one, because I'm sure Kelley's gonna say they'll break it down for someone that's never done it, and that's probably a more appropriate conversation. Is the first one's gonna be tough. I'm a believer in buying them cash. I'm only now financing them because my cash flow is so heavy that there's nothing that can really take the family down, but to go super leverage heavy in the beginning, I think that's risky because you probably don't have the wherewithal in case something does happen. But let's just say in the beginning, I'm a big believer in cash as you're building. And where it's painful is that first one where you throw out $150,000 to make $1,000 a month. You're like, what the hell? That was a huge safety blanket I had in the bank, and I just threw it out there, and now I'm making $1,000 a month. But then you do that again. And you do it again. And assuming you live modestly, let's say $5,500, $6,000 a month are your bills, you do that 5 or 6 times. And before you know it, you wake up and you're like, I don't need the safety net in the bank anymore. Now, every penny I bring in, I want to throw it out there again. And I want to throw it out there again. And then your machine starts to pay for itself. You still have your traditional income plus your cash flow. Now it's compounding, and you can buy them much quicker. And then all of a sudden your machine is feeding itself. Yeah. Your rentals are buying more rentals, and then it just grows stronger and stronger and stronger.
I think that's
so
really
it's
helpful.
painful for the first 5. Stomach it until all your bills are paid for, and then it'll get easier.
Wake up and cash rent checks.
I think that's a great way to talk about it as in terms of an investment rather than just like, having like, you think about it as you're investing this money and then you're going to cash flow it later on. I think that's a really good way.
Well, and that's the other thing. I was just explaining this to an agent, in their mind, they're like, I just threw out 150,000, but you didn't just throw out 150,000. You bought an asset that you can always go and borrow against.
Exactly.
Right.
Tell them, if the wheels fall off my bus, we've got 33 vaults. And we could start with the first one, unlock it, pull out the money, go to the second one, pull out the money, the third one, pull out the money, and hopefully our bus will be able to be put back together, and you only have to sacrifice 3 of our rentals.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just throw it out there and you're only going to generate $1,000 a month. You can borrow against it. You can sell it. You can always do that. But so it's still an asset, and it's just now it's a cash flowing asset instead of depreciating cash in your bank.
I think that this episode has been so valuable to all of our listeners. Like I think that everybody's really learned a lot. So we appreciate your guys' time. We usually wrap up our episodes with like the same questions for everyone. And I think that this first one is going to be really interesting, especially for you guys, given that you have 4 kids and you have to get out the door and have a business to run. So what does your morning routine usually look like?
Go ahead. You say yours first.
Do you want me to go first?
You can say your morning routine.
Yeah, mine will be like 30 seconds. Hers is like 30 minutes. No,
sounds like me.
Morning routine. I actually have a very similar routine, and I think successful people are very habitual people. They do the same thing consistently. So I wake up every morning without an alarm clock between 5:30 and 7. So some days it's super early. 7's like the latest. I immediately grab my phone, which is probably a bad habit, but I grab my phone. I start getting my brain moving. I make sure I don't have any emergency text messages, go through that nonsense. Then I roll out of bed and I either sit in one of 2 chairs, either the chair in my master or the chair in my bathroom. And I immediately look at MSN.com, and I look at that to learn the social news and the entertainment news and just learn what's going on with the world. And then I go to CNBC.com to understand what's going on with the financial world, and to see if there's any news or any breaking news, or what's the stock market doing, what are the interest rates doing, what's the Fed doing, what companies are buying what or who. And then I go to Las Vegas Review-Journal and I read that one to understand what's happening in my town. And then I go through all of my emails and I start going through my list of things. And that kind of gets me educated for the day. Instead of reading books every day, I read tons of news articles. It improves my ability to communicate, it improves my vocabulary, it keeps me educated on current matters. And then I get ready in my dress clothes or my work clothes. I go to LVAC. I work out there. I shower there. I shave there. And then I go straight to my office and I start my day. And I land at my office every day at about 10 a.m.
All right.
And that's my morning routine.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Well, my morning routine, my alarm goes off about 6 times in between 6 a.m. and 6:30 for me to get up. And then I try my best to get myself ready before I get anybody else ready, so that I'm not like running around like a crazy person. So I get myself ready. Then I get my older 2, I just get their clothes out ready for them. I have to dress the 4-year-old and the 2-year-old, do their breakfast, make their lunches, and then I try to leave by 8 so I can be done with my drop-offs by 9:15. So I do first drop at 8:20, then the second one's at 8:45, 8:50, and then 9. And then I get to the office around 9:15, 9:30.
She missed a lot of cool parts.
Okay.
If any of the kids wake up in a bad mood, which only one does, we're not pointing fingers, but then she'll start trying to reprogram her mind.
Yeah.
So what do you do there?
Well, we just have to talk about, every morning I'm like, is today going to be a good day? Okay. So it's like every morning she has to say, good morning, today's going to be a good day. And then like, I feel like I get a little frantic if we're running late. So right before we leave the house, I make everybody give me a high five out the garage door before they get in the car. Like, yeah.
I like that. I like that.
I love that. I feel like that's like such great mental health for your kids. It's awesome. That's
You know,
really
what's
cool.
funny is I didn't do it before, but I know like once like COVID happened, like teachers couldn't hug them and teachers couldn't do like their fun and quirky things. And I'm like, well, then I should do it at home so they at least get it. And then I realized like they really like it. They're like, no, high five. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, yeah. So I just started doing it. One good thing out of COVID.
I love that. That's awesome.
What's the best thing you've eaten this week?
Oh,
The best thing that I have eaten this week, I would say on Sunday, I pretty much only ate chicken. And for me, that's the best thing that I feel best about myself when I do that, because for me, it's high protein and low carbs, and I try to keep the carbs light. And so wait, best thing like health wise or like taste wise? Because taste wise, I had a badass cookie.
We usually say taste wise.
Yeah,
like that's
up
what
for
you,
interpretation.
yeah.
The crumbled cookie all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had
People love crumble. That's the ones that they had on the plane. You remember?
Oh yeah,
Those really big.
are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the best.
I could be on the strictest diet ever. If somebody rolls up with that, it's
game over.
Yeah, that's exactly who I am.
All right, this next question is a little woo-woo, but that's me. So if you were a color, what color would you be?
Purple.
That's your guys' company color, right?
Don't say white.
Yeah.
It would be purple though. It's been my favorite color like my whole life.
I love it.
And I love purple for lots of reasons, but I think I don't know if there's a lot. I'd be white because I love the color white. I think
cars are white.
My cars are white. I love wearing white shoes and keeping them clean. I love white shirts.
White shirts.
Yeah,
Just so happens to be the company colors also. Yeah, you guys cars all are white.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
that's all intentional. A lot of our marketing, we didn't have any money when we started. We had to get creative on how
to brand.
Sure, of course.
Without spending money. And that's what the stickers are about. That's why the cars are white. That's why, they're a grade nicer. I'll pay the extra bit in the monthly car payment to be able to brand all over town with a car that's worth looking at with a logo on the side. And that's why they're all white. And that's why, it's all intentional. Everything you see is intentional.
Yeah, branding is everything. What is on your nightstand?
12 empty water bottles.
I have some crystals there too for like good vibes.
Some good energy.
Yeah, but I do have a lot of empty water bottles.
Stay hydrated. That's okay.
I have to.
You want to know what's on mine?
Yeah.
A lamp.
Yeah.
That's I feel like all men say the same thing.
I have books, but
that you
whether
don't
they get
read.
opened or not. Well, I'm like you. I like reading news articles and financial news. It's just more digestible.
Yeah.
It's a guy thing.
Yeah.
All right, last question for you guys. And I feel like as our last episode, there couldn't be two more perfect people to ask this question to. Our show is called Balancing Chaos. So give our listeners your best tip for balancing the chaos.
Whenever you think you are maxed out, either verbally announce it or in your mind say it. Fuck this. I can take way more. Reverse it. Instead of becoming a victim to it, buck up and say, I want more. Give me more. I can handle more. I'm stronger than this. I'm tougher than this. I can take on more right now. Let's go. Give it to me. And what that does, it dismisses the amount of stress you really have going on. You're like, shit, I guess it's not that bad. I can take more.
That's a good one.
That's the one I use often.
Seriously.
I love it. I think that's a great place to end. So thank you guys so much for coming on today. We appreciate you. This was seriously so wonderful. And I cannot wait for our listeners to get this one in their ears. So
yeah.
Thank
and
you guys
everyone
so much.
check out their podcast. It's called Rugrats and Renovations.
Oh
Pretty good
yeah, we didn't
stuff.
even ask you guys about your podcast. We'll have to talk more about that next time. Or you just tell us, give us a little blip, because I want everyone to go listen to your guys' podcast. It's awesome.
I mean, it's called Going Galindo, Rugrats and Renovations, and it's like a combination of lifestyle and business. We talk a lot more about business and lifestyle, but just how we blend the two.
And
Love it.
We're very heavy and focused on mindset. We think mindset is the key to everything. So we like to double down on that. It's not
Awesome.
just mechanics on buying a flip cheap and then selling it for more
No.
and you'll be a millionaire. Like, no,
Yeah.
you have the right mindset. And that's what that podcast focuses heavy on.
Yeah.
Not like those infomercials, huh?
Exactly. It's all artificial motivation. The second you swipe out, you're like, shh. Well, let me go back. And then you swipe back up and it's got the good music again. And you're all hyped. And then you swipe back, you're like, shh.
Well, thank you guys. This was so awesome. Like I said, and everyone go listen to their podcast, Going Galindo. You will absolutely love it. We will have you guys on again. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Have a good one. See ya. Hey, thanks for listening.
Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media at Wellness by Kelley. Drop us a DM for who you want to hear from.